We begin with the second chapter of the book of Yechezkel. Yesterday, the Maaseh Merkava, the chariot, the chapter that is the starting point or maybe the end point for many Jewish mysticists, many Kabbalists, in trying to cling and to understand and be close to God. And Yechezkel hears this prophecy and falls to his face. And he continues in the beginning of chapter 2, Vayomer Eli, and God said to me, Ben Adam, Amod al raglecha va'adaber otach. He says, stand on your feet that I may speak to you. Now, this is a strange phrase, Ben Adam. What else would Yechezkel be other than a Ben Adam, other than a man, the son of a human being? And seemingly, the reason why this phrase is used, and it's used over and over again in the book of Yechezkel, reading it even in today's chapter, we will see it a couple of more times. I think it's used maybe 100 times. It's a short chapter, and yet we'll see it, I think, 3 times in this chapter. Is Yechezkel's book is less about what's happening in the world and more about what's happening to God. It's about God's throne, and God's throne is on the move. The Beit HaMikdash, right? Yirmiyahu saw the cauldron, which is the Babylonians who are going to come south and are going to destroy Israel. Yechezkel is seeing God. Yechezkel is seeing God leave the temple, leave Jerusalem, come to Bavel, if you want to put it as such in a strange way. So Yechezkel, whose prophecy so much about the supernal, about God, about the Keter, about the however you want to understand it, as opposed to that, he's Ben Adam. He's a person. And so I think that's probably the reason why that phrase is used over and over again in this book. I'm sure there are other reasons, but that's my understanding. And it spoke to me, a spirit entered into me. And it set me on my feet. And I heard what was being spoken to me. So here we see, and in a sense, we talked about similar to Moshe. Moshe starts with the sneh, eventually the Mishkan. Yechezkel starts with the Maaseh Merkava. Eventually, he's going to prophesy about the second temple. And so Moshe falls on his face, and then God speaks to him, and Yechezkel falls on his face, and Yechezkel is told by God to stand up. And sort of it's almost like it's not volitional. It's almost like he's being pushed up by God. Vayomer Eli, and he said to me, here we see it again, Ben Adam, son of man, Sholeach ani otcha el bnei Yisrael el goyim hamordim asher marduvi hema va'avotam pashuvi ad etzem hayom hazeh. I'm sending you to the people of Israel, the nation of rebels who have rebelled against me. They, as well as their ancestors, have defied me to this very day. All right, so we talked about Yechezkel. He's in Bavel. These are the Jews we talked about yesterday, the Jews who left in the year 597 with Yehonia the king. That's who his message is mostly to, because he's in Bavel, he's in the diaspora with them. But they are described not as a great people, but as rebels. The Habanim, and we talked about their parents were sinners, and the sons, Shefanim, they are stubborn. The Chizkei, they're stubborn, their hearts are stubborn. Ani sholeach otcha alehem. I'm sending them to you. And you should tell them, this is what God says. Whether they listen or not. Because, they're a bunch of rebels. They'll know that there was a prophet amongst them. I warned them. I sent the prophet. I tried. If they listen, then the prophet has been successful. If they don't, it's their own fault. It's not because I didn't try. And it's not because you didn't try Yechezkel. The name, we talked about the name, Yechezkel, Chazak, the strength, whether it's right, God is in exile, so Yechezkel has to bring his plus, he has to bring strength to God, or God is giving him strength in the diaspora, or God is saying to him, you have to be Chazak, Yechezkel. Your name has to be Chazak because the people you're going to are not going to listen to you, much like they didn't really listen to Yeshaya, or they didn't listen to Amos, or they didn't listen to Yirmiyahu, etc., etc., etc. Okay, so you're going to go to them. I'm sending a prophet. I'm trying to keep them in line. V'ata, we're in verse 6, pasuk vav, Ben Adam, al tira mehem u'midivreihem al tira ki saravim v'salanim otach ve'el akrabim ata yoshev midivreihem al tira b'neihem al teichat ki veit mari heiman. Again, God warns him, don't be scared of their words, of their thorns, of their thistles that they press upon you. Don't be afraid. Don't be dismayed. They're a rebellious breed. Meaning, I'm sending you, and it's sort of like a Pyrrhic mission. It's not something that you are presumably going to be successful in. You're going to tell them that things are going to get better, that there's going to be a temple, that you should remain loyal. This is God. This is what God is all about. They're not going to listen to you. That's a little bit disappointing to be told that you have a mission in life and the mission that you're supposed to do, they're not going to listen to. But eventually it will be. The dibarta et dvarai alehem yishmu v'im yechdalu ki mari hema. So speak the words that I tell you, whether or not they listen or not. This is our job. Our job is to communicate to them, to hope that on their own, then that will inspire them and push them. And of course, it's hard if you think about it, right? The Jews at this time understand that they're being, that they were punished. They're not yet fully punished because this is still presumably before the Beit HaMikdash has been destroyed. It's supposed to be 5 years. About the year 591 or 592 is when this is supposed to have taken place, according to most commentaries. And so it's a time that's a difficult time. The Jews, most of the 10 tribes have been exiled. Much of the leaders of Yerushalayim, of Yehuda, have been exiled. Things don't look good for the small city of Jerusalem. So it's very hard when God tells you what to do that you're going to listen. It's kind of like post-Holocaust. The many Jews who said, my belief in God is no longer, died on the gallows of Auschwitz, or however many different people put it. This is not quite that, but it is a time of great trouble to the Jewish people. And thus it's not surprising, at least to me, that many of the people would not listen and not want to be part of this covenant. V'atav ben Adam, I lied, 4th time in this chapter. Shma et asher ani medaber elecha al timeri k'beit hameri, say picha ve'echol et asher ani notein elecha. And now, mortal one, right? Human, son of man, listen to what I tell you. Don't be rebellious like them. They might be rebellious, and you might be a Jew. You might be an Israelite. You might be from Yehuda, Yechezkel ben Buzi, but don't be like them. Open your mouth and eat what I am giving you. There are those who understand this, and we'll see it into the next chapter as being literal, that Yechezkel is literally eating this prophecy that's given to him, or whether it means, the idea of consume it so it fills you, so it's part of you, so you know who it is, and therefore you can really tell them. Ve'ereh, and I looked, v'hinei yad shlucha elai, and a hand was stretched out to me. Everybody knows about Daniel, the writing on the wall, the hand that appears. We'll get there eventually. Here too, we have the hand of God is coming and giving me a book. And just think about, like in the book of Yirmiyahu, the book of Yeshivas, we're talking about the hand of God which stretched out the earth. We go back to the book of Shemot, where we talk about the Yad Chazakah and the Zroa and the Tiyah, God's hand. That's usually with the sense of strength, of punishment, plucking Bnei Israel out of Egypt, or destroying the Egyptians or others. Here, the hand is stretching out to give Yechezkel a sefer. So it's a very, very sort of different idea. Vayifrosota, God unrolled it lifanai in front of me. V'hi tuva panimu va'achor. He had a double-sided printer, right? So the pages were printed on there was writing on both sides. V'chatuv aleha kinim v'hege vahi, and on it were written kinim, like keynote, lamentations, and dirges, and woes. It's not going to be easy at first what you're going to say to them, Yechezkel, but eventually what you're going to give them is a sense of being chazak, of being strong, of being strength. So God here is leaving in the first chapter. God is on the move. Bnei Yisrael is on the move. It's even a nice thing when you think about it. It's an idea about Imo Anochi B'tzara, when Yaakov was scared about going down to Egypt, and God appears to him on his way down. I believe it is in Beersheba, and God says, don't worry, I'll go down with you. I will also take you out. Here God says, I kicked the part of the tribe of Yehuda has been kicked out of Israel. I'm going to go with them. I'll be with them. I'm also in the diaspora. And so there's going to be some lamentation and dirge in difficult times. But ultimately, if God's going to the diaspora, the idea is God is going to return from the diaspora with Bnei Israel. One other thing to point out, those of us who are here are in the Golah. Now, of course, in Israel is where Beit HaMikdash is, the permanent place where God is. But you don't have to be living in Israel to be a Jew and to have a connection with God. God may have his permanent home above Yerushalayim, whatever that means by above. But God also moves, in a sense. God is everywhere, and everywhere. So everywhere is full of God, and God is empty of everywhere. I want to put it as such, right? God can be. We can tune into God everywhere. And so here you may be far away, but I'm not leaving you alone. I'm sending a prophet. If you listen to him, great. If you don't listen to him, that's your problem. But God says, I'm not abandoning you. I will be with you. And so here, this is starting to give us a little bit more. The first chapter was just about the heavens. And now we start to see a little bit more about the messages that are going to go to Yechezkel and what his different messages, his meaning, and what he is supposed to help Bnei Israel understand, those who are in Bavel and those who will come to Bavel, in order that they keep their strength and that they ultimately, whether it be they or their children or grandchildren, return back to Yerushalayim.